You know how sometimes it just feels like you're working so hard to enjoy your life and you're wondering, why can't I be happy even though my life is really good? Why is it so hard to be in the present moment? And what is it that has me constantly worrying and focusing on the future? Well, if you're ready to just chill the out, stay tuned, because that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Hey beautiful humans, I'm Sukie Baxter, founder of Whole Body Revolution, where I help you to rewire yourself for greater health, happiness, and success. If you're new here, make sure you click the subscribe button and hit the bell to get notified so you never miss a video update. And anything that I mention in this video, you can find linked in the description box below. Let's get into it. So I wanted to talk with you today about why it's so hard to enjoy your life, even when things are really good. Now, to be completely clear, I am not talking about clinical depression. I am not talking about other diagnosable mental states. What I am talking about is something that often doesn't go diagnosed, or it's completely misunderstood, because from the outside, everything looks pretty good. And that is when you're a high achiever, but you really struggle to enjoy your achievements and you struggle to be happy in your life. So here's the thing, driven people like to achieve. It makes us feel accomplished, it makes us feel worthy, and most of all, it makes us feel like we're in control. But it also leaves us feeling burned out, exhausted, fried, and ultimately unhappy, even when our lives are amazing. So here's the difficult truth about high achievement. We accomplish a lot of things, but a lot of times our sense of worthiness is linked to the effort that creates the accomplishment and not necessarily to the accomplishment. Now, this can be a really good thing because it drives us to do a lot of hard work. It drives us to pursue big goals and make amazing contributions to our families and our communities and our society at large. It helps us to really be motivated to work hard, which is a good thing. But if you think back, a lot of us got a lot of validation and a lot of incentive to work hard through the validation from parents and teachers and from our community and really even from just messages in our culture. And so a lot of times it can feel like our sense of worth is connected to the difficult struggle that gets us to an achievement. So then when you get to one of your milestones and you try to relax and enjoy that milestone, then there can be almost a sense of discomfort and dis-ease or unease when you try to relax because there's this feeling of not being worthy, although it can manifest in lots of different ways. But where this really has its roots is in our need to connect to people. So humans are really social creatures. We need each other. We are communal animals. We need society, culture, structure. As problematic as it can be, we do need a group. And so we seek actions that will help to preserve our place in our group, our worthiness, our value in our communities. And that's really great because, like I said, that's what leads us to work hard, contribute, and give to others, and all of the beautiful things that make us human and make us amazing. But where it becomes a bit problematic is when you feel like when you're struggling and when you're really putting in the effort and really working hard, that's when you're worthy. And when you're not doing it, there's this fear that like, oh, maybe people will think I'm lazy. Maybe people will think I'm entitled. Maybe people won't, they won't like me. They won't accept me because the validation that you've been given comes through that struggle. So what happens then is that the joy feeling, that feeling of relaxation and relief, starts to feel a little bit uncomfortable, and you start looking again for that struggle and that strife. And it should be said too that a way that a lot of people connect to one another is on struggle. So if you get together with a group of people and start talking, more often than not, people will talk about things that are going wrong with them. They'll talk about how somebody fell and broke their hip, and Joe down the street had his house broken into, and did you hear about that thing on the news and that new headline, and my boss did this thing, or there are layoffs at this company, or whatever thing. There's an evolutionary reason for this. People aren't just negative people. There's a reason we do this. From an evolutionary standpoint, it is much more imperative that we identify immediate threats to our survival so that we can escape them, rather than that we focus on the future and plan for success. So let me give you just kind of a basic example of how that plays out. If you are a human living in a, a rural area and you don't have shelter, you're just kind of living the wild human life, and you see some rustling in the bushes over there and you notice it because it's unusual and you think, oh, there could be a predator in there. There could be a lion, a tiger, a bear, a cougar, a something that is got big teeth and is going to eat me. Getting out of where you are without getting eaten by the predator is a much more impactful action on the long-term survival of you than, say, planning a farm and thinking about how to build a beautiful straw bale home and a barn where you can keep your livestock. Both have a survival component, because if you build a farm, you're going to have food and produce and cows that you can milk and all kinds of things that will perpetuate your survival, because they will feed you and they will give you shelter and keep you safe from the elements and all of the things that are important. But if you get eaten by the predator before you are able to build the farm, it has no impact on your survival. So from a neurological standpoint, we are wired to look for and perceive threats that may be problematic for us. But where this goes awry is that in modern life, there's so much that's happening on a consistent basis, and it's just coming at us, and there's really no release from that. So in a more primitive time, we didn't have to worry about taxes and nuclear war or other very big, very threatening type things that can happen. We didn't have ongoing work stress. We didn't have traffic. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have all these things that were stimulating our nervous systems. There was a threat. You dealt with it, and you either lived or you didn't live. And either way, it was over. And you could, if you lived, obviously you could relax. If you were dead, you really didn't need to relax anymore. Another piece of this inability to let down and enjoy life when you're a really driven high achiever is that if you have any residual trauma stored in your body, which most people have some level of this, then what that can be is an elevation, an activation in your sympathetic nervous system that's just kind of chronic and ongoing. These can be kind of low level or they can be higher level. But this agitation that you have can drive you to resolve it. So this is a really normal process. We're supposed to have this agitation, because if you never had any activation in your nervous system, if you never had any autonomic arousal, you wouldn't feed yourself. You wouldn't get up off the couch and go find food when you're hungry. You would just die. Hunger is one type of nervous system activation, of autonomic arousal, and it creates agitation. And that agitation is uncomfortable, and it motivates you to physically move and go find food. And when you do that and you eat the food, it resolves the agitation and you settle back into that relaxed state. But a lot of people who have experienced trauma, their nervous system has lost the ability to do something that is called pendulation. So this is a word that comes from Peter Levine's work, Somatic Experiencing. And he uses this word to talk about the natural swing from activation to deactivation. So for example, when you get a little bit hungry, you are a little bit activated, and you then go search for food, you eat the food, you resolve it, and you swing back into that rest, replenish, relaxed mode. It's a little more complex and nuanced than this, but there's this idea of kind of activation, deactivation, activation, deactivation. Well, the problem with stored trauma is that you just stay in activation all the time, which can actually drive people to be really high achievers, because you have this agitation that just keeps you going all the time. It also leads to burnout, because you never get that replenishment. You never shift back into the rest and restore branch of your nervous system. So you're just going all the time. And it's just like driving with your foot fully on the gas all the time. You're going to run out of fuel. You just will. There's only so much. So for people who have trauma stored in their nervous system, no matter how much you achieve, you're always going to have that sense of agitation and that inability to completely rest and enjoy your achievements. And it does not matter how much you achieve until you start to get your nervous system back able to shift into that relaxed mode. So what are some things that we can do to help this out? Well, there's some really easy tools, and one of them you can actually apply right now. And that is to shift your vision from a more pointed vision, where you're focused on something, into more of a peripheral awareness. And this has the effect of calming autonomic arousal. So it calms your nervous system down. So a simple exercise that I teach to some of my clients when I'm teaching them this concept is to just hold your hands out in front of you with your index fingers up and together. And what you're going to do is bring your hands apart, and you're just going to watch your fingers. So your eyes are focused on your fingers, and you're just going to watch them moving apart in your peripheral vision. And as you do that, you're just activating your awareness and your attention to what's happening on the sides of your vision, of your visual field. And this actually has the effect of calming down your nervous system. It's very simple. So if you want to take this up a notch, you can take it outside. There's a concept called self-generated optic flow, and this comes from a neuroscientist at Stanford, Andrew Huberman. And what this is when you're outside and you're moving through the environment, you're walking or you're running, and you're self-generated movements, so not driving in a car, but you're actually physically moving. I don't know if bike riding counts because you're on a vehicle, but there's some physicality there, so I would imagine it would. But the important thing is that you're self-generating forward momentum and you're watching things pass in your peripheral vision. So you're seeing the objects moving past you. You see a bush move past you, a light post, a house, as you're moving forward. That's calming to your autonomic nervous system as well. Now, the challenge with this is that for individuals who have trauma stored in their nervous system, they're often completely disconnected from their external environment. So if you're outside going for a walk, pay attention to what you're seeing. Look around at the different objects and watch them pass. Notice them in the periphery of your vision. You can also look directly at them, but just practice actually looking and noticing that things are around you and that they're moving past you as you're generating that forward momentum. Now, another thing that you can do to help your nervous system to calm down is to combine your work and your striving with a sense of play. So two actions can look very differently. So for example, if two people run up the street, one person might be running joyfully and expressing a lot of play and a lot of happiness and exuberance, and it feels really good and they're in a positive state. Another person might be running up the street right next to them, but they're running away from something. They're running in fear and they're trying to escape something that appears dangerous. It may or may not be dangerous, but something that appears dangerous to them. Both people are running up the street, but two very different qualities of running, especially from a nervous system standpoint, because one is going to be very expensive, like all of your internal resources are going to be devoted to that running, and the other one is going to be very playful, and you're going to be able to see everything that's around you, be connected to your environment, there's laughter, and there's joy. Both do take effort because it's running, so there is a physical expenditure of moving your body up the street. Well, one of the things we can do is make this more figurative. So in your forward movement in your life, whatever you're working towards, you can introduce play. One of the ways that I really like to do this for myself is to have markers and metrics of forward movement, because it almost gamifies your achievements. It gamifies your day and the things that you're doing if you can look and see how far you've come. And similarly, I think that there is a figurative connection to that idea of forward movement and seeing things move past you as well. So we know that physically seeing things move past you is calming to your nervous system. And I imagine that conceiving of things moving past you, concepts and ideas, right? So like you're moving closer to your goal is not necessarily something you can physically measure. I mean, sometimes it is, sometimes it's like, I want to run a marathon and I ran, 10 miles today, and yesterday, or, 2 months ago, I could only run, 4 miles. So I'm physically, you see the physical changes there, but it can be more figurative too. And so when you have these metrics, I believe that it actually gives us a sense of progress, and it's very calming to the nervous system. And then it can be a little bit lighter and a little bit more playful. It's very hard for someone who likes to be in forward movement to go from forward movement to completely stopping movement. So to go from on to off, from active pursuit to rest and replenishment completely. It feels really uncomfortable, and there tends to be a lot of agitation when that forward movement and that anxiety and that drive that's so familiar just up and disappear. So introducing play is a nice intermediate step. So you're still doing the same forward moving work, but you're making it lighter. You're making it more playful. It's less exhausting. It doesn't lead to as much burnout. And of course, one more thing that you can do that you've probably heard of before is to celebrate your wins. And this is actually really important. It's something that I personally am not great at. I've gotten better at it. So I understand if you want to roll your eyes and be like, I know I should celebrate my wins. Yeah. I completely get it, because I'm someone who's like, yep, got that. And then I kind of want to move on, because I too like to be in that forward movement. However, there's a real reason for celebrating your wins, and that is that brain chemistry is very complex. So I'm oversimplifying this, and I will be totally clear that I'm not a brain chemistry expert. But from my research into the neuroscience of all of this, what I've learned is that dopamine is the chemical of pursuit. Dopamine helps us to go get something. It's the reward chemical. That's what we think about with dopamine. Like, it's the chemical that's active when people are gambling. But dopamine is linked to going and getting and pursuing and achieving. Serotonin is the chemical of like, I've got everything I need in my current environment. So you could think of this like appreciation, gratitude, being, really joyful, really happy, really connected to what's going on right now. It would probably be the chemical of feeling abundant. So the thing is, serotonin resets dopamine. So we actually need to have those moments of feeling like we have everything we need in our current environment in order to then be able to go out and pursue. And I believe that this is part of why people get burned out so easily in our culture, is that we don't take enough time to really dip into those moments of feeling connected to abundance and supported and all of that. And then we're too quickly back into the reward and the pursuit. So if you take a moment to just acknowledge your wins and to maybe even appreciate yourself for the hard work that you put in, even if it's just a second, that can be really, really helpful for settling your system and giving you kind of a reboot to allow you to then go be the high achiever that you want to be. What in this conversation about happiness and enjoying your life as a high achiever, as someone who likes to go out and do things, has resonated the most with you? Tell me in the comments below. And if you like this video, hit like, make sure you subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.